Kurosawa Kokoro is a judo artist. She sees life as a judo game, and as someone who has lived all her life with judo, having attended the sports school, she can barely see anything different again in life. While that may seem great, it is for her until she gets a very severe injury that stops her from playing judo. She can no longer fight. She can no longer make a name for herself, and now she has to find something else to do in life. All she wants to forth one thing she could pinpoint to do in life was to be a publisher. As a result, she starts job searching. She has gone for 20 interviews, and she has realized that an interview is just like a judo game. When you arrive at the scene, you have to ensure you show strength and show the world that you are capable, after which you know that there are going to be less than 10 spaces for the hundreds that have been interviewed. For her, she doesn't see it outpace anyone. She just wants to be number 1 out of 10. When she enters Vibes Publishing, she sees the cleaner, and compared to the other interviewers who would be behaving as if they didn't see the cleaner, she bows to them and greets the old man. Little does she know that the cleaner is the owner of the company, and he had pretended that way so he was able to access all the interviewers. He knows the ones who were very timid when they entered the company, and when they were about to enter for the interview, they pretended to be strong. He had claimed that people like that aren't the best options because they are only faking their strength. But when he sees Kurosawa, he has an entirely different opinion. Upon entering for the interview, the interviewers look at her resume, and they see that she attended the sports school, and she had been active in judo for years. They ask her why she is changing her profession, and she tells them about how her goal for several years has been to be a worldwide judo player. Unfortunately, she can no longer gun for medals and gifts because she has been completely injured. However, one thing that gave her strength, even when she was a young aspiring judo player, was manga. She enjoyed reading manga, and even when she was tired at work, she gained her strength from manga. Hence, after her dreams ended, she decided to give space to another thing that could become a dream for her, and it was manga, which is why she had come for the interview. While her words are sweet to the ears, they can't give out jobs just because of stories and inspiring words. They ask her if she knows what it means to be a manga editor, and if she thinks she can do the job. She agrees that she doesn't know the details of the job, but she promises that just like judo, she will add her energy and ensure she wins. At that moment, the cleaner enters the room with the mop stick. She assumes he is coming to harm them, and she carries the old and throws him off. Seconds later, she realizes she has just thrown away the owner of the company, Kyuji Masaru. She returns home in tears about how she has lost the job opportunity and how she will have to remain jobless. She looks at her judo kit and remembers the day she got injured. Upon returning to work the next day, Kyuji tells the board members that he likes Kurosawa and she should be employed. Meanwhile, the staff of the Vibe department of the company, who produces a weekly magazine, talk about Kurosawa, and the head of the department, Wada Yasuki, who is also a sports lover, insists he will like her. A month later, Kurosawa is hired for the job, and she is to resume with the Vibe weekly magazine department. When she introduces herself, they are shocked that she was brought to their department. Upon finishing work, she goes to her school, and she meets her former friends who are now preparing for a competition. She shares the good news about her job with them, and some of them are even tearing up because they are glad she can now smile again, and she is no longer depressed. However, they ask her what is her job as an editor in the company, and she is speechless. Because of that, when she returns to work the next day, she asks one of her senior staff, Lockaibe, about the work of an editor. Lockaibe gives her a manga note for her to check. Manga notes are drawings and stories that are written by manga artists for the company to publish. The editors are to work on those notes and edit them. She can't decipher what is in the notes because it looks like a rough sketch, but when she goes to buy the produced magazine, she realizes that the rough sketch has become an entire story. Editors work according to the times the writer they are assigned to work, and their efficiency depends on how efficient the artist is. The next day, Lockaibe tells her to follow him, and they go to the house of a renowned old manga artist, Mikiriyama Ryu. She likes Mikiriyama because of his Great Dragon series, and when she sees him, she tells him how much she loved his series. He takes them to his printing room, telling her that the same equipment that he has been using to print for 30 years is the same ones he is using at the moment. He also takes them to the rooms that his students are using and expresses that the students are learning so they can also debut soon. Lockaibe tells her that despite being old, Mikiriyama is one of the most stressless and efficient artists. He delivers his work at least 3 months before it is needed, and he treats everyone with respect. After they leave Mikiriyama, they visit another artist, Takahata, who compared to Mikiriyama isn't that efficient. Editors have to chase him for deadlines because he doesn't submit until it is close, and he is troublesome. Regardless, Kurosawa has always read his books, and she likes him so much that she asks him if she could get a handshake from him. He offers her a handshake, and when she holds his hands, her hands grip him. As they leave, Lockaibe tells her that Mikiriyama doesn't just have students, he also ensures he checks their work from time to time so that they can be better. Just as he had predicted, Mikiriyama goes to his students to check their works and correct one of them, Kanbara, that he couldn't see the picture he was trying to portray in the manga he had drawn. Kanbara gets angry at him and tells him the reason he couldn't see it is because he is old and everyone has been saying his new works are losing quality compared to his old works, and the reason new artists haven't been able to debut is because old artists like Mikiriyama have refused to retire. Mikiriyama doesn't even get angry, he just hopes that when Kanbara is calm, he will understand what he is trying to explain to him. Upon returning to the office, Kurosawa reads some of Mikiriyama's recent words, and one of the staff, Mibu, asks her if she has read his debut work and gives her to read. She gives some suggestions about the difference between the work. Their manager, Wada, is angry because his team has lost consecutively, and at that moment, he receives a call from Mikiriyama, who asks that all the work he has submitted should be cancelled and returned to him. Wada calls Lockeye, asking what has happened, and Lockeye runs to find Mikiriyama to investigate, while Wada tells the team to gather the works of another artist so they can publish. She tries to go nearer to the other editors so she can help them out with their work, but they all remind her that she is a newbie and there is nothing she can do to help them out. She remains in her seat until she closes at work that day. On the other hand, Lockeye goes to visit Mikiriyama, but Mikiriyama refuses to give him an audience. He remains in front of Mikiriyama's house throughout the entire day, but he doesn't want to speak. The following day, Kurosawa gets to work. She finds out that most of the editors have spent their night at work because they had so much to do and they had to meet up. She takes it upon herself to clean their tables up and ensures they are taken care of. At that moment, a random man enters the office, and she recognizes him as Hatton, another manga artist. She recalls that Hatton was also one of Mikiriyama's students, and she asks him how he is doing. He asks for the person in charge of Mikiriyama's editing, and she tells him it is Lockeye, but he hasn't resumed and he will come later. Hatton meets one of the editors who gives him an audience. When Lockeye comes, Hatton tells him that for 30 years, Mikiriyama has been working diligently, and he also tells him what Kanbara said to Mikiriyama the night before. Despite what Kanbara said, Mikiriyama didn't get angry at all, but Kanbara took it upon himself to open a critic account for Mikiriyama and print out the slabs of the page and how they have called Mikiriyama a finished project. He sent this tab to Mikiriyama on his fax, and Mikiriyama saw them and felt disappointed. As a result, Mikiriyama decides that he will retire. He says he doesn't know the best way to console Mikiriyama, and he needs Lockeye's help. At that point, Lockeye is also confused. He accepts fate that Mikiriyama may not publish again, and that week when they release their magazine, everyone keeps calling to ask about Mikiriyama's work. Instead of giving up, Kanbara keeps posting that it seems Mikiriyama is giving up, and it will be easier for other young editors to debut. Lockeye doesn't know what to do, and he goes to eat. While there, Kurosawa sees him and asks him what he is going to do to get Mikiriyama back to work. He insists that he has no idea, and for someone who has spent his entire life drawing manga, he doubts there is a way he can convince him to return. He recalls that the first time Kurosawa asked him who an editor was, he told Kurosawa to find out the meaning for herself. He admits that at that point, he also didn't think he knew what it meant to be an editor. On the other hand, Mikiriyama's wife tries to convince him to return to drawing, but he tells her that he doesn't think he wants to do that because since he has been drawing, he has tried to ensure that he spreads goodwill among everyone. And now realizing that the picture of peace and love he had been drawing hasn't been accepted by people including Kanbara, who has worked with him for years, he doesn't think he can continue that way. The next day, Kurosawa gets a call from her friend, who first teases her with her work before they go out on a walk. After she finishes the work, she goes to the bookshop where she buys manga books before joining Vibes. She meets the seller, Kawa, and gives Kawa her card. Kawa takes her to manga gods that people bow to and tells her that if they look at it while standing up, it frowns, but when they look at it while kneeling, he smiles. She realizes that the reason why Mikiriyama's work looks like it has lost taste is because of the direction they are looking at it. She runs back to the office and takes Mikiriyama. She looks at it in another way and confirms what she had felt. She calls Lockeye and tells him, and they both move to find Mikiriyama. Eventually, Mikiriyama gives them an audience. He tells them that he isn't interested in working again, and Lockeye bows to apologize to him. He says that as editors, they had just been collecting the works and printing without realizing anything. While Mikiriyama tries to tell him that he had just become his editor and he didn't have a blame, Kurosawa chips in and reveals that Mikiriyama's work hasn't lost quality. For 30 years, Mikiriyama has been sitting down in one place to draw and using the same equipment. However, due to old age, his back is now bent and the perspective he sees his work is now different, and it won't be the same. However, if he changes back to the perspective he has been seeing his work when he was younger, it will be better. He realizes she is right. All the students he had also trained enter the room, and they promise that they are going to work with him for them to get it right. He gives it a new try, and the book returns to its normal shape to Kanbara's disappointment. After finishing, he appreciates Lockeye for not giving up on him, and promises that he will also not give up due to old age. Instead, he will work closely with his editors to ensure that he remains in shape. Upon returning to work, the staff is happy to be with Kurosawa, and they appreciate her. One of them announces that they have entered Juhan Shudai for one of their magazines and calls them together to celebrate. She asks her colleagues what Juhan Shudai means, and they tell her it is a state where the magazine has been completely sold out, and they have to print another one. They all celebrate it, and they are glad. After the meeting, Kurosawa is so excited about the little involvement she has had in the company, and she jumps around. Members from the sales department, including Koizumi, who is a very timid young guy, see her and wonder why she is that lucky to be in the editorial department, while he has been trying to be in the same department for a long period. He leaves to sell one of the manga books, and when he gets to the bookshop, the seller refuses to give him an audience and keeps looking at him like a ghost. He wonders why his life is always different, and why he doesn't have anything great to do. For more than 3 years, he has been trying to transfer to the editorial department, but there is no one ready to give him an audience, let alone allow him to transfer there. He doesn't think sales is the department for him, and he insists he will do better in other departments. He goes to meet one of the staff of the editorial department, asking him to do an advert for the sale of one of the books, New, because the hook isn't selling much, and if they debut with it, the artist won't have more than 5,000 sales with a survey he has done. The editor refuses to do all of that and claims he is too busy to care. Without trying to beg him, Koizumi walks away. This makes Kurosawa go to meet him, telling him that he has to add extra effort to life, and he can call the artist himself to see if the artist will accept the advert. As a result, Koizumi meets his boss and tells his boss about the fact that they won't get to produce more than 5,000 copies. His boss immediately calls Wada and tells Wada about this. He tells him that if he doesn't do anything, they can't do anything too. Angry at him, Wada insists they will meet at the company meeting. That meeting is the one that the company uses to determine the amount of books they will publish, and when Koizumi insists according to the survey, they can't do more than 5,000, Wada objects. He says that it isn't enough, and as a debut book, he wishes it gets more copies. The head of the sales department reminds him that if the books do not sell, they will be at a loss as a result. It's better to be safe. Koizumi's boss calls him, asking him why he didn't do the advertisement for the book and visiting the bookshop. He reveals that the bookshops haven't been giving him an audience, and his boss asks him if he is doing his best and if he doesn't want to be in the department. He admits that he wants to be in the editorial department, but his boss asks him again what he thinks they do in that department. He realizes he hasn't even thought of that, and he is just lazy. As a result, his boss brings Kurosawa to help in the sales of a new book that will be debuting by a writer, Kikuchi. They are to share 800 sample copies of the book to bookshops around, and Kikuchi comes to the office to sign the copies. Kurosawa is to aid Koizumi in the distribution, and as they walk, she tells Koizumi that Kikuchi has been working in a company for years, and suddenly, the company insists they will be changing his department, which is why he had resigned and had decided to be a freelancer. Koizumi feels it's a bad decision because who is he sure he will succeed as a freelancer? Kurosawa tells him that life is about trying things. When they arrive at the bookshop, Kurosawa with all her strength tries to give and sell the book to the manager in charge of the Vibes Corner. This manager accepts to hang the book by the Vibe Corner, so that when others see it and read a part of it, they will be interested in reading the other part. However, Kurosawa feels if the book is also hung by the railway corner, adults who are interested in just buying books for their journey will be interested in it. She asks the lady if she can help out, but the lady says it is Manaka who is in charge and Manaka may not accept. Regardless, she goes to meet Manaka. While Koizumi is alone with the bookseller, the woman tells him she loves Kurosawa's personality, compared to Koizumi's own, where he had been nicknamed as a ghost because he is barely seen wherever he is. When Kurosawa returns, she tells them she has convinced Manaka and they will be hanging the book there. She leaves with Koizumi for lunch, and she happily tells the receptionist to do her best. This makes Koizumi tell her he doesn't like the word do your best because he feels it is only to force someone to do whatever they aren't fit for. She tells him it isn't like that, and she tells him about how she was injured and everyone told her to do her best. So now, she is only trying to do her best. They share the remaining books around, and when the book gets published, it gets the third best sales in the week. She calls Kikuchi by the bookshop, and she shows him how much his book is selling, which makes him cry so much. She returns to the office happily, as some posts on the manga page say that she is a bear cub who is happy at the moment, but doesn't know when she will be sad. On the other hand, the sales department does a meeting as to how they can generate more sales for the book. Although it is selling so much at the moment, they want sales that could allow them to reach Juhan Shudai so they can reprint another one. They are looking for a sales strategy that isn't too expensive, and Koizumi tells them about how Vibes magazines are read by young adults, but if they advertise it along with adult books like Kurosawa had done, they could generate more sales. He tells them that when they sell to adults who are tired of working, these adults will surely refer them to others, and this will make the work sell well. After he finishes his speech, his boss tells him he has done well and tells him they will go with his suggestions. He takes him to his office, explaining to him that the work of a salesperson is that of passion. He brings out the jotter he had used when he was younger, and tells him that the jotter contains even the hobbies of the booksellers and their likes. He reveals that although they are selling books, they are selling to people, and people will only buy their passion, so to sell well, he has to appeal to people's passion, and he wants Koizumi to do just that. As a result, Koizumi meets with Kurosawa, who takes him to a store to get stickers to explain the story to the booksellers so that the booksellers can enjoy them. For the next few days, they both take it upon themselves to go from shop to sell these books. While they do all of these, Lockeye tells Kurosawa that manga publishing isn't the work of just a person, it is a union of people. If any of them slacks in their duty, it will affect the whole book. However, with a good salesperson who is passionate about his job, and a great editor, they can sell the books to the booksellers at the bookshop, and these booksellers in return will advertise these books on their own to the buyers. It is a union of about 4 people, and if any of them fail in their duty, the book will fail. Following the aggressive marketing that Kurosawa has done with Koizumi, they realize that even stores that they didn't advertise have started pasting adverts of the books in their store, thereby bringing more publicity. As time goes on, the book gets Juhan Shodai, and they get called for a second publishing. When the head of sales looks at the sales report of that week, he thumps Koizumi up and Koizumi runs to the editorial department to announce that they are at Juhan Shodai, which makes everyone excited. On the other hand is a book that has had very low sales. As a result, they have decided that they will stop publishing the book. Meanwhile, Takahata goes shopping with his female model. He complains that everything in his model's taste is very expensive, and they are very busy. She asks him if he should retire, but he reminds her that if they retire, he won't even get the money to afford the things she is always asking for, so she gives up. Meanwhile, Kurosawa goes to eat with Koizumi as a celebration at the same restaurant that Lockeye eats. He asks her why she is coming to his hiding place, but she insists that it is just a restaurant. Wada meets with the head of sales so they can strategize. He says he is trying to find out who will be the next artist that the bear cub, which Kurosawa will hit, and he picks an artist. When he shows the head of sales, the man wonders if Kurosawa can pull that off. On the other hand, Kurosawa is excited that she will be getting her first artist. Will she succeed with this artist? With all joy and excitement, Kurosawa is so happy that she is getting to have her first personal job. If only she knows that it would be a very troublesome job, and she wouldn't be able to deal with the trouble she would experience. Her new artist is no other one than Takahata, who is the writer of the lovely manga named Horned Princess. Right since Horned Princess debuted, it has been enjoyed by several readers, and since its first episode, it has continually remained on the Vibes magazine rated list as the top 1 or top 2 magazines in the country. The issue now is that Takahata isn't the best artist you can imagine. Except for being a very talented and genius artist, he is very affected by his personal life, and this affects his job greatly. While preparing for this week's episode, about a day before his deadline, he has been unable to buy the bag his girlfriend, Rin, wanted, and Rin has been very angry about this, thereby threatening to break up with him. He goes to meet her, apologizing to her for not meeting up to his responsibility, and tells her that on his next free date, he will take her shopping and buy this bag for her. After speaking with her, Kurosawa visits him to introduce herself as his next editor. While he doesn't even care about who she is and how she does, he cares so much about his girlfriend. On the day that Kurosawa is meant to get the copy of the work, she goes to his house and she can't find him. She overhears him calling Rin's name, and when she enters his room, she sees he is depressed. It turns out that the night before, Rin has decided that she can't be in a relationship with him again, and she has left. As a result, Takahata has been unable to work, and he hasn't finished his deadline. For a work that should be published by the end of the week, it means that she won't be able to meet up. She quickly calls Lockeye, who advises her as to what to do, and luckily for her, Takahata gathers himself as fast as possible to get the work done. On the other hand, there is another staff member in the Vibe magazine corner, Mibu. His artist's work has been the lowest on the ranking list for the past 8 weeks, and the work is about to be removed. He goes to meet his artist, Narada, trying to convince him to please work. Narada insists that only people who are as talented as Takahata are meant to be manga artists. He tries to beg Narada, but he doesn't succeed. As a result, he goes to the supermarket to buy books belonging to Narada so he can find out where the issues is eliminating from. Kurosawa is glad that she has sorted out issues with Takahata that week. She goes for lunch with Koizumi and tells him the process of publishing books. After the week's book is published, the writer is expected to send the name for the next week edition and also send his AOTA of it. When Takahata submits the week's work, Lockeye shows Wada, who admits that it is good, but says the issue they will have is with Takahata's next week's name. Just as they have predicted, when it is time for Takahata to send the name for the next week, he doesn't send it. Just as Kurosawa is about to call him, she gets a fax about the name, and when she reads it, she sees that the name isn't projective at all. She calls Takahata, complaining that the name he has sent to her can't be used because it doesn't follow the other storyline of last week's work, but Takahata insists that the only reason she feels that way is because she is a newbie. He claims he has worked himself out despite that his girlfriend has left him, and he is trying to meet up so they shouldn't stress him. Kurosawa decides to use the name as he has sent it and goes to show Lockaibe. Lockaibe asks her what was the first thing she felt upon seeing the name, and she admits her disappointment, so he tells her that is the same way the readers will be disappointed, and as editors, they get paid based on how good the work is. She also shows Wada, who agrees that she can't proceed with it, and she has to find a way to get Takahata to change it. She decides to print the new name, and she takes a copy to Takahata telling him that he has to change the name. Takahata attempts to slam the door against her. He says he doesn't have the time for that, but she asks him if it is the readers that should suffer for his personal life. Despite how much she begs him, he refuses to accept her pleading. He locks the door against her, and she stands by the door in tears. He eventually changes his mind and decides he will change the title. He decides to use the title, Am I a Strong Man, just as he finishes. He hears a knock on the door, and while he assumes it is Kurosawa again, he goes to the door, and he is shocked to see Rin. He falls on the floor and worships her. On the other hand, Mibu meets Narada again, showing him all he has discovered from the works he has posted. He tells him the issue isn't with his work, but with the editor who didn't realize that he is the first reader of the artist's work, and also the first one to find out the reader's thoughts. He decides to be passionate in his job, and this convinces Narada, who eventually accepts to keep writing. Kurosawa gets a new title from Takahata, and she is so excited. She goes to eat with Mibu, who also tells her what he has learned from the new project he has just done. As she returns to the company, she overhears Wada talking about Comic Bazaar. She doesn't know what it means, and when she asks when is the next one, she tells him she would like to join, and Wada tells her to get Comic Newbie to get the bazaar. She is so excited to do this, and Koizumi also advises her on where to get the newbies. In the blog post, it is posted that although the bear cub has been excited to dream, she doesn't know there is a problem with dreams. What problem will she encounter? Just as the search for a new artist begins, she goes for an interview with Lockaibe, and she meets 3 manga artists. One of them, Tamachi, has been working with a competitive publishing company, Emperor, for a while before he came for the interview. During the interview, the first thing he did was criticize the way Emperor was, and when Lockaibe asks him if he had been reading their work to know the type of work they publish, he claims they are second to Emperor and they don't deserve his attention. The second person they had interviewed, Shimbashi, he doesn't seem like he is interested in working with them, and he keeps avoiding all questions. The third person is a young boy named Otsuka who has not debuted before. After the meeting, Lockaibe asks Kurosawa who she thinks they should work with, and while she gives her reservations about the rest, she talks about how she doesn't think they deserve the opportunity and they could only try Otsuka. Lockaibe tells her that he doesn't care about the behaviors of the artists. All he cares about is their works, and if he is sure they will work well with him, he doesn't have any issue with accepting their works, no matter how bad it seems their attitudes are. He tells her that the idea of a proposal is about being fast, and if he gets a newbie, she will also be the one to manage them. On the other hand, there is a young girl, Aguri, who loves drawing manga, but doesn't intend to make it a profession. Her mother keeps urging her to get a job and keeps asking her about her job search, which makes her feel very bad. She takes manga as a hobby, and she sells copies of her works. After making a sale one day, her friends advised her that she could make manga a profession. Just as others would feel, she insists that she isn't cut fit to make it a profession, and she can't succeed in it. They remind her that her best magazine is The Horned Princess, and she can also reach out to Vibes with a proposal, and they may accept her. Meanwhile, Kurosawa gets a call from a man who wants to propose. He is a 75-year-old man, and his drawing is tacky. She tells him that he won't be able to make a debut, even if he reaches all the magazine companies, but he can publish for his age-mates, and it is well. During the Comic Bazaar, several young comic artists visit, and the head of the editorial department of Emperor, Gen Bugami, also comes to Vibe's corner laughing at them that their corner is so scanty and no one wants to work with them. As Kurosawa walks around, she meets a young boy, Nakata, who asks her to please check his work. When she checks it, she asks him if she can hold on to it. He wonders if he can debut, but she tells him she has no idea about that, but she likes what she is seeing and she wants to read it. She also meets Aguri among the crowd. At first, Aguri is not interested in showing her the comic book she has written, but she shows her regardless, and Kurosawa tells her she likes it. She takes the work of both Aguri and Nakata to Mikiriyama, begging that they both work as assistants to him until they get better so they can debut. When they meet Mikiriyama, he advises them to go for the newbie comic competition as it will make debuting easier for them. Aguri announces this to her friends and also tells them that Kurosawa has offered to check her name. She takes the name to Kurosawa, but Kurosawa gives several advice to make it better. For a month, Aguri works on these objections, and she returns the work to Kurosawa, who also insists it isn't as good enough. Aguri gets discouraged. When she returns to the studio, the older assistants tell her that Kurosawa isn't even cut fit to be an editor, and she is also a judo player. At work, Kurosawa shows Lockaibe Aguri's new work, and Lockaibe admits that it is better than the former one. Wada tells her to go easy on the girl because if she doesn't debut fast, she will get discouraged. On Agari's way home, Nakata advises her that since he had been writing, the only person who has allowed him to read his work is Kurosawa, and she is good so she shouldn't give up. At home, her parents keep pestering her about getting a job and getting a good husband. At that moment, she gets an email. It is from Yasui, one of the staff from Vibes. He meets with her and tells her that one of the best manga is going for serialization, and he wants her to draw the anime. She asks if Kurosawa will be fine with it, but he wonders if she wants to remain with Kurosawa and not debut at all. After he leaves her, he meets Kurosawa telling her that it is either Agari remains with her without debuting, or she should work with the serialization because he can replace her with anyone. Kurosawa doesn't feel good about this. She meets Koizumi telling him that she thinks Agari is good, and she doesn't want her to get discouraged if she doesn't get any good offer. At home, Agari argues with her mother that she wants to be a manga artist, but her mother doesn't believe in her, so she sits and cries. She tells herself that she doesn't feel bad that her mother doesn't believe in her, but she also doesn't believe in herself. She walks away and meets Kurosawa, who encourages her that she is good and she should take the serialization. She goes for the serialization. This decision doesn't feel good to Kurosawa, and she complains to Lobike that if she was a good editor like Lockaibe was, Agari would have been able to debut like Otsuka. Upon getting to the bookshop, she finds out that the manga made by the older man has been published, and it is selling out among the adults. She is so glad about this, and when Wada hears about it, he immediately urges her that she should find an adult corner manga writer for their publishing company too, and she promises to do her best. The next day, when Lockaibe is about to go to work, he notices that it seems someone has been staring at him and stalking him. He feels eyes on his body, and he feels uncomfortable. He goes to work, and he reveals to his colleagues that he has been feeling as if someone has been stalking him. They tell him that it could be his ex-wife, but he insists that isn't the case, and it can't be his ex-wife. They all watch as Wada keeps watching his sports game, hoping they will win that day, but he is disappointed as they lose again. In the sales department, they are told it is about time for the company's account week, and everyone should gather stock of all the books they have been left in charge of. On the other hand, Kyuji, the owner of the company, does an interview where he reveals that although he takes pride in the other things his company achieves, he feels the best thing he wants for his company is for them to always reach Juhan Shutai. Considering when he started the company has done considerably well, and they are excited for him. He also finds out he has lunch with a prominent person in about 2 months, but when he looks at the date, he sees it is the same date he has something important fixed, so he refuses to attend. Meanwhile, Lockaibe and Kurosawa meet Otsuka for his book launch. They tell him that he has to change the design for his book, because the design he had used for the main page is too flashy, and it may need extra cost to print. Lockaibe asks him if he would use that large amount to buy a newbie book, and he also says no, so they ask him to do the editing. As they walk away, Lockaibe intimates to Kurosawa that what newbie artists do not consider is the cost of reprinting. If they can't do enough to make a profit for the company for the first reprinting, the company won't want to invest in them again, and they will die. One of the staff asks Lockaibe who would be making the layout, and he says it is Noro. Noro is a renounced layout artist who, although young, is known to be very good at his work, and as a result, he gets many jobs. Before visiting Noro, Kurosawa goes for lunch with Koizumi, and she tells Koizumi that she has noticed something very strange in Lobike, and she wonders what type of person he is. When he buys something, he drops all the change he gets for the cashier. He helps everyone he sees around. He picks up the dirt he finds on the way, and does good things every time. She asks the attendant in the restaurant, Misato, who is Lockaibe's friend, if she knows the reason he does all of that, and she smiles. Kurosawa follows Lockaibe to visit Noro, and on their way back, she sees Lockaibe picking the dirt on the way again. She tells him he is doing the same thing again, and asks him why. He wonders if she is his stalker. Later, Kyuji goes to the bookshop to buy a book, and he gets a free voucher which he refuses, but the seller insists. Wada also goes to get a book, and he insists on taking the same voucher that Kyuji was given. On Kyuji's way home, he takes the train. Lockaibe intimates to Kurosawa that he wants to be like Kyuji. Despite how rich Kyuji is, he still takes the bus, does community service, and helps everyone. Kyuji once told them his story. He is the son of an old woman who doesn't have money to sponsor him. She insists he drops out of school and starts doing menial jobs. He starts stealing from people, and one day as he tries to rob a man, the man tells him about his luck, and how his luck breeds success for him. After leaving the man, he is attacked by someone he had robbed before, and after that incident, he decides to leave that city. He relocated and started working well. He also does gambling, and he wins so much. One of his friends gave him a book to read, and became a lover of books. One day, he gets a call that his house has caught fire. Although his wife and child survived, he lost all he had. He decided to stop gambling, and fortunately, he got a book from a man which he sold out and entered Juhan Shutai. Since then, he had decided to only try his luck on good things. Also, Wada gives his lottery ticket to Mibu to hold for the team. In preparation for Atsuka's launch, they need to find a good cover for him, and Kurosawa goes to the bookshop to find out what to do. She decides that white will be a good color, and she goes to tell Atsuka. They make the printing, and it sells so well. Koizumi comes to tell Lockaibe how good the work had gone in sales and applauds his work. As he is about to leave, Lockaibe asks him if he is free the next day. He also tells Kurosawa that she and Koizumi are to follow Kyuji somewhere the following day. She goes to the book disposal room with Kyuji, and Kyuji tells them he comes there every year because he doesn't want his passion for books to die. When they are done, they return to work, and they deliberate whether they should take the work of Nakata for debuting. While it seems like the work won't sell well, Kurosawa insists some people will love it. As a result, Wada asks her to call Nakata and tell him they have accepted his work. He is so excited, but when he announces to the other assistant, they comment that Vibes has lost quality. Meanwhile, Yasui suddenly calls Aguri and tells her to stop working and trash the ones she has done. When the result of the lottery comes out, Wada sees he has won and asks for the ticket. However, when Kurosawa brings it out, he realizes it is the wrong ticket. Kurosawa recalls that she had mistakenly mixed it up with Kyuji's own when Kyuji wanted to give his own Koizumi, and it fell before they called Kyuji to take it back. He found out he won with that ticket, but since he didn't want the lottery luck again, he gives it to a girl to tear away so he can get Juhan Shutai again. Yasui the Crusher, which has been Yasui's nickname since time memorial, is known for using people until he crushes them, and no matter how dedicated you can assume he is, it is barely possible for someone posted under him to succeed considerably, and they will have to leave the company eventually. He is doing the same to Aguri. Fortunately, he isn't calling her to stop the entire work. Instead, he tells her that she should scrap all she has written and start all over again. She reminds him that he didn't complain when she had sent them to him, but he doesn't care about that. He gives her a new deadline, and she feels suffocated. When Kurosawa gets to the office, she finds out what has happened, and she wonders why Yasui would have done that. The others tell her it may be because the agency asked for a revision, but he could have rejected the offer for the revision, and he didn't. She runs out of the office, hoping that there is something she can help Aguri with. On New Year's Day, while everyone prays for themselves and their health, Kurosawa spends time praying for Nakata on his debut, and hopes he gets all the things he wants during his debut. After her prayer, she receives a call from Aguri, who she tells Happy New Year, but Aguri says she doesn't even know it is a new year. Kurosawa visits Aguri, who complains about how she is trying to meet deadlines, and she advises her to do her best. Eventually, Aguri submits her copy for the book, and Nakata's book is also ready for publishing. Kurosawa confronts Yasui about how he had behaved, but Yasui just walks out on her. He remembers when he was a young editor who wanted to work with a particular artist. He would ensure he went to work every day including Sundays just so the man would notice him. Eventually, the man did, and they collaborated. To him, work isn't just about yourself but success. Kurosawa asks about Yasui from Koizumi, who tells her he has heard from his team that he never misses his deadlines and he is very dedicated. Upon debut, Nakata's work didn't get as much pride as he had expected it to. Although Aguri's work does better, she asks Yasui what the agency had said, but he tells her the agency said nothing, which makes her feel bad. As he walks away from her, he recalls how his first debut with the artist has gone and how the man hugged him excitedly. Following the failure of Nakata's debut, he visits Kurosawa, who asks if he has found out the issue in his work, and he reveals it is because he had more of individuality. She asks him to learn more under Mikiriyama before the next episode. She takes him to Mikiriyama, who accepts him, and when the other assistants ask him who Kurosawa is, he tells them he doesn't see her as just a girl, but as a god. Mikiriyama also comments that his meetings with Lockaibe have been going well, and he says he has realized an artist can't work alone. A new publishing company has been established and has been known among the people because they have their names on blogs, and they use that opportunity to find out what the people want to read and work on it. As a result, Wada asks all his team members to open their blogs with their names so they can compete too. He also tells Lockaibe that he wants to bring back old mangas so he can draw the people who were old readers of manga. While the meeting goes on, Kurosawa sees a copy of the book Aguri has been working on Yasui's table. She takes it, and she is shocked to see that the picture used doesn't belong to Aguri. She confronts Yasui, who tells her he feels Aguri doesn't have the name to get the publicity they needed, which was why he removed her. She is angry that he had wasted the girl's effort, but he doesn't answer her, and he walks away. Kurosawa is shocked about the kind of person Yasui is. She speaks with Lockaibe, who tells her that Yasui wasn't that person before. Then, he worked with that great artist as his editor. He worked with Lockaibe and Wada under the company called Comic Flow. The company stopped selling well, and they had to cut from weekly publication to bi-weekly publication. Regardless, it doesn't work, and it has to be discontinued. The artist he is working on asks to work with the emperor, and he tries to beg the man, but the man tells him that he has bills to pay, and that drawing pays his bills. Telling him that he is a salaryman, and he will get his salary regardless, But if an artist doesn't draw, he can't make money. Yasui's wife also gets angry at him because he has been so much on jobs that he has forgotten their family. She gets pissed at him for forgetting his daughter's birthday. The comic flow closes down as the manager drags that he had done several good works, and the company was his graveyard. Yasui fights him, telling him he was just lucky with the work he had done before. Since they joined Vibes, Yasui has been more on his numbers and nothing else. He doesn't care about passion, he just wants to sell magazines. He goes to meet Aguri and gives her the next book to draw, but she tells him she isn't interested. Without caring, he takes the book and leaves. He reports to Wada that he will find another person and Wada appreciates him for his work, but he says he is only working for his salary. Later, Aguri meets Kurosawa to tell her she wants to start writing her manga again and asks if Kurosawa will help her check it when she is done. Kurosawa accepts, and she apologizes for letting go of Kurosawa's hands initially. At work, Kurosawa finds out about the blog that Yasui writes and what he says about her. Before she clicks on it, Yasui deletes the blog page. Numa, one of the assistants who work at Mikirama's office, feels as if he isn't enough. He puts all his best into writing mangas and names. To him, the first thing you have to do when writing a manga is to find the storyline, then find the character because the character is the most important figure which could help the story progress. He has to do all he can to get a good name so his story can progress. Upon getting to work that day, he teases the others that if he gets what he wants and debuts his first book, he will hire Nakata as an assistant. Nakata tells him he will be interested in working with him, but he reveals that he was only joking and he didn't intend that. This makes Nakata warn him that he shouldn't have joked with something like that because words are a spirit that if said unnecessarily, could come back and swallow you. Mikirama's wife comes to call them for lunch and she notices that Nakata isn't eating well. She asks him how he is doing, telling him that if he can't get enough food, she can make extra meals and send to him at home. Instead of appreciating this, Nakata walks away from the table. Numa doesn't understand the reason he would have done that and walks to meet him. He tells Numa that he wasn't fortunate to have a good mother, and he doesn't think anyone who wants to present herself as a mother to him is worth it, so she should leave her alone. On the other hand, at work, Kurosawa finds out about the idea of republishing old works for veteran manga artists. Wada asks her if she has read the ancient works of a writer named Ushiroda. She says no and asks where Ushiroda is now, but they tell her he has disappeared. They go to meet Mikirama so they can get permission to republish his work too. He permits them, and when they tell him about Ushiroda, he remembers when he was also working with him and how great it was. Before leaving, Nakata tells Kurosawa that he has written a new name and he wants Kurosawa to check it. He doesn't know that Numa has taken page 7 out of the name. Numa reads it at night and he gets very scared. When Kurosawa reads the name, she realizes a page is missing and she calls Nakata to get it. Nakata searches the entire office but doesn't find it, and Numa refuses to confess. However, Mikirama has seen him when he was taking it, so Mikirama confronts him later to ask why. He says he doesn't know why, and Mikirama collects the book and gives it back to Nakata, claiming he was the one that borrowed it. Mikirama advises Numa that when writing, he should search his heart as that may be his highest hindrance. Then Nakata gives the notes to Kurosawa with the stains on it. Wada and Kurosawa visit Ushiroda at home. They meet his daughter, Ayu, and she opens the door for them. They meet Ushiroda and reveal the purpose of their visit. He tells them he will only work with them if they pay him 100 million yen. They reveal that their opinion is using the work, and he will get the royalty. He pours water at their body, telling them that they think he will sell his works to wretched people like them. Ayu comments that Ushiroda still thinks he is the same popular artist, and that is why. By the time they are leaving, they give Ayu their card so she can call them if her father changes his mind. Upon getting back to the office and seeing the note, Kurosawa assumes that there is someone in the office bullying Nakata. She speaks to Nakata, who feels Mikirama is covering up for his wife. She approaches Numa to know what could be the issue between Nakata and Mikirama's wife, but he tells her there is no issue and Nakata only feels because the lady is relating to him like a mother. She wants to be his mother. Upon returning to work, they receive a call at work that Kurosawa's daughter is at the police station. Kurosawa is shocked about this because she doesn't have a daughter, but upon getting to the police station, she finds out it is Ayu. Ayu insists that her mother was killed for a stupid thing like manga, and it makes her feel very bad. As a result, Kurosawa meets Wada and begs him that they add more strength to getting Ushiroda to republish so that Ayu will realize that the same manga that she felt destroyed her family can build it back. At work, Nakata sees Numa's work and tries to read it, but Numa screams at him, telling him his work isn't good enough. Since Numa debuted and won the National Newbie Writer Award, he hasn't been able to publish any good work, and all the names he had been putting out were all rejected, and this makes him feel so horrible. He talks to Mikirama and reveals that he is tired of putting all his strength into a future that isn't sure and he wants to retire. The next day, his retirement is announced, and on his way, he gives Nakata his earpiece and also the name he used to win the award. He also reveals he was the one who took Nakata's book, because he felt bad that Nakata could see an editor like Kurosawa that completes him and trust in him, but he can't. He appreciates Nakata and walks away in tears. Kurosawa sees him and tries to call him back, but he is gone. Nakata calls her to tell her what has happened, and she feels bad. She meets Lockeye, asking how artists can't find great editors, and he tells her it is a hurdle that the artist has to cross by himself. Upon resuming work, while listening to Numa's songs, Nakata stops feeling inspired to work. He stops drawing, and this comes to the notice of Lockeye, who tells Kurosawa about it. She doesn't understand what had happened, and she wants to rush down and find out what could have happened to his inspiration, but Yasui tells her she doesn't have to worry. It's not like Nakata has a serialization that he is working on, and it is not even like he will get a serialization in some years to come, so why is she bothered? Most importantly, a writer in the middle of serialization shouldn't lose his inspiration. Suddenly, Lockeye gets a call from Otsuka that he doesn't want to write again. This is a major issue because he is in the middle of serialization, and they have to solve it. He immediately meets with Lockeye to ask him what is wrong, and Lockeye reveals that he went online to research what people were saying about his book, even though Lockeye has told him to do that. He says at first, he sees great comments, and this convinces him to continue. Eventually, he starts seeing people talking about how he only has good people in his magazine and no bad boys, so his magazine isn't normal. As a result, he finds it very difficult to work again. Lockeye reveals it is because he feels the pain of others, and he has to know how to channel that to be better. When Kurosawa thinks about that, she realizes that the reason Nakata's work isn't doing great is that he is more egoistic than empathetic. He feels he is the one going through the greatest issues in life, and doesn't attempt to feel the pain of other people, and this is why he fails. Wada tries to visit Oshiroda again. He gives Ayu a document to give her father, but Ayu tells him she pitied him because he is only coming every day to bow before a stupid man. She throws the book at her father and walks away. Kurosawa decides to buy some books to give Ayu since she said she hasn't read manga before. She sees Ayu, while some boys are bullying her, and she sends them away and gives her the books in hopes that she will feel inspired to buy more by herself and read. Also, Otsuka realizes Lockeye is right and meets with Lockeye again, while Kurosawa meets with Nakata to tell him about his issues. While the meeting dispatches, Otsuka sees Nakata. He has been wanting to meet him for a while, but doesn't know that Nakata hates him because Nakata feels he is a child from a rich home, and if manga writing doesn't work for him, he has a place to be. Nakata doesn't give Otsuka an audience, and he even closes the elevator against him. On the other hand, Wada visits an old friend at an old bookshop. The man reveals that Ushiroda and his wife had once come to his bookshop before, and he even shows pictures. As expected, Ayu takes a liking to manga and even follows Kurosawa to buy some. On their way home, she asks Kurosawa if her father's manga were also that good, and she tells her yes. Realizing what could have caused Ushiroda's downfall was the death of his wife, who was his inspiration. Wafa visits him again and tries to convince him. As he speaks from the door, Ayu arrives with Kurosawa, and she opens the door. She takes her mother's picture to her father, asking him to look at it and tell her that she had forgiven him for nothing. The woman left her honeymoon and other lively things in her life because he was a writer and he wanted to give up on that. He feels bad about that, and he decides to go to the reprinting, and this makes Ayu happy. As though the problem in Kurosawa's life isn't enough, she gets a call that Rin has left Takahata again, and he doesn't have the inspiration to work, so she runs to find Rin. On the other hand, Mikuyama speaks with Nakata and finds out the reason he lacks inspiration is that he has allowed the emotions of another person, Numa, through the songs he has been listening to enter into him. He calls Kurosawa, telling her that if he could purge the emotions away, he would be fine. While Kurosawa is trying to convince Rin, an editor from Emperor, who sees her, calls Takahata and tells him Rin is coming, but asks him if he is sure what he is drawing at Vibes is what he wants, or if he wants to start working with Emperor. That day, Kenbu, the editor for Emperor, calls Takahata and asks for a meeting between them. As Kurosawa is about to leave the restaurant with Rin, she looks at Kenbu and greets him. Upon arriving home, Takahata first tries to welcome Rin, but Kurosawa urges him that he should first try and finish up the work he is drawing for the week. She ensures that he finishes up what he is drawing and quickly takes it to the producer for printing. She returns to the office in relief that she has achieved what she needs to achieve, but Lockeye tells her she can't continue like that, and she has to find a way to stop Takahata from making his personal life disturb his office work. However, she insists she doesn't like the idea of disturbing someone's private life so long as it doesn't affect his work. She will leave him. Meanwhile, there was an artist, Inao, which Lockeye was his editor before. However, Lockeye had to let him go when he said the company wasn't helping him progress. Inao went to Emperor and has now been managed by Kenbu. He has successfully released a work that is now well known in the entire country, and although Lockeye is happy for him, Vibes feels it is Lockeye that allowed them lose a gem. Also, Nakata drops a note for Kurosawa that he has finished up a new note, and she plans to meet him. She also finds out that Ayu is now interested in joining a comic group in school. She meets Nakata, and he shows her the note he has just finished. While she likes it, she feels he can do better. She tells him he has to break through the shell he is in and find his inspiration, and he seeks to do that by trying to relate with people and finding inspiration from them. Just as Lockeye is walking around regretting what he has done with Inao, he sees Takahata walking. He suspects that Takahata may also be meeting Kenbu, and he stalks him. He watches as Takahata meets Kenbu, and Kenbu advises him that even though his work, the Horned Princess, is doing so great, he feels he can do better than that, and he can try his hands on other things that will make him popular. Lockeye thinks of how to interfere in the conversation. He doesn't want to lose Takahata the way he had lost Inao. He feels Takahata may feel bad if he feels stalked, so he waits. Suddenly, Rin sees him, and she calls his name, thereby alerting both Takahata and Kenbu. Lockeye walks around with Takahata and Rin and tries to convince Takahata not to go to the Emperor. Rin tells him that the Emperor pays more, but he tells Rin it isn't about the money. He thinks he may be able to try his hands at other things in another company, and it is his decision after all. Lockeye suggests that he will speak to Kurosawa, and they will find means for him to engage in other things, but he begs Lockeye not to tell Kurosawa because it will make Kurosawa cry. That week, Takahata finishes his work very quickly and submits it to Kurosawa in hopes to start working on a new name for Rin. In the letter he sends to Kurosawa, he gives her an appreciation and appreciates her for everything she has done for him. While she is so excited about the appreciation, Lockeye knows it means another thing. She takes the appreciation to the other staff, who show her a hidden note, and she finds out he is meeting Kenbu. At that moment, Wada also comes to tell them to hold their artist well, because the Emperor is going for artists. She immediately raises the alarm about Takahata, and Lockeye reveals he knows, but he feels it is the best idea for Takahata. Yasui asks Lockeye what is he doing and reminds him of what happened with Inao. He asks him who will remain in the company, and if the company will make gains, if he keeps allowing all the artists to leave. Kurosawa takes it upon herself to meet Takahata that day. Depressed, Lockeye goes to the bookshop to buy Inao's book. He meets Kenbu, who tells him Inao talks about him a lot, and Inao says Lockeye didn't look bothered when he said he was leaving Vibes and coming to Emperor. Walking away, Lockeye expresses that he was bothered, but he didn't want to hold down his stars. He remembers the words of his late wife that he is too rational, and it is sad. At home, Rin tries to disturb Takahata again, but he tells her that if she wants to leave, she should leave for good this time, and she carries her bag and leaves. Kurosawa visits Takahata and asks to help him find Rin, but he says she shouldn't worry again. She talks about his note to the Emperor and how he had leaked it by himself. Meanwhile, Nakata goes to Vibes to find Kurosawa to complain that he doesn't think he will be able to draw the female figure in the book because he hates women due to his upbringing. He meets Lockeye, who tells him that Kurosawa will take a long time before returning. Rin comes to meet Lockeye to blame him, and Lockeye takes her to the room. As Nakata stands there, Ayu comes in and mistakenly hits him and his book falls. She asks him if he is an artist, and he says yes, so she advises him to save his royalties. As she walks away, he gets the inspiration for the female character, and he draws her. Kurosawa doesn't seek to convince Takahata. Instead, she begs him that if he wants to stop, he should at least make the last issue. On the other hand, Lockeye meets Rin, who tells him that Takahata feels Lockeye doesn't like his book The Horned Princess. He calls Kurosawa and tells her that she should stop Takahata from meeting Kenbu. He also runs to the restaurant where Takahata should meet Kenbu, and he tells Takahata that he loves Horned Princess and he is a fan. He leaves for Takahata to speak with Kenbu, and Takahata reveals that he isn't a genius like Kenbu feels, and he can't draw anything other than the Horned Princess. He tells him that he doesn't want to be a genius. Instead, he wants to be a jet plane in which people enter and are happy. He has people inside his jet plane at the moment, and he won't want to disappoint them, so he will continue with the Horned Princess. Kenbu leaves and Takahata goes to meet Lockeye to ask why he is that flustered. Lockeye reveals he has never chased for something before, and even when his wife left, he didn't chase after her, but he is glad he chased this one. Nakata finishes his drawing and gives it to Kurosawa. She takes it for the serialization meeting, and they insist they can't see the story. She explains that it is a story of fear and control, and how to overcome fear. They accept the note, and she calls him to tell him his serialization has been accepted. In tears, he runs to Mikiriyama to tell him that for the first time, he is glad he is alive, and he is glad he is not dead. She listens to him as he is happy, and she is glad she could make him that happy. However, that is the beginning of her worry. For serialization, there have to be weekly episodes of the manga published. Within the next 6 months, Nakata has caused her several worries. She receives a call that no assistant wants to work with Nakata, as they all say he doesn't give them attention. Yasui tells her that there is no way a writer will survive without an assistant, and she has to tell Nakata that a writer with talent has to share talents, and unless he isn't a writer with talents. This makes Kurosawa insist that he has talents, but she tells him that talent isn't just the ability to write, but the ability to sustain. She takes the assistant that Nakata couldn't work with to Mikiriyama and complains about her worries to him. She tells him the assistants think that he is scary. They feel it is because he is putting himself into the horror manga Peeves Transition that he is writing. She visits him with food and realizes that he hasn't been eating. She begs him to eat and also take a rest and promises to get a new assistant for him, but he claims he can work alone and he doesn't need new assistants. Upon returning to the office, they check the rank and see that no one has been talking about Nakata's manga. Lockeye tells her it is silence between the storm because all the other manga writers have been asking about him and wanting to meet him because they know he has the talents. They believe that by the time the 10th episode comes out, they will see the truth. When the 10th episode comes out, everyone in the country is talking about Peeves' transition. They ask for a meet and greet with Nakata, and they have also planned for him to publish the first edition of his book. Kurosawa makes plans and visits Nakata by the door. She realizes he has collapsed, and she tries to break his door, but he wakes up. She begs him to eat and sleep, but he refuses, telling her that if she has nothing to do, she should leave. He tells her about the meet and greet and also asks him to write the sketch of the cover layout of the book so that Noro can draw it for him. She also suggests that they use an introduction from Mikiriyama to draw people to read. He wonders if she thinks he can't sell on his own, but she reminds him that the most important thing is profit. She keeps forcing him to do these things, and he throws the table away, telling her that she can't control him. She walks away feeling bad, and she tells Lockeye that she isn't a good editor because she can't communicate with her artist in the way he wants. She calls Noro and promises to sketch by herself. The day after, Nakata intentionally visits the office when he knows she won't be around. He drops his note and meets Atsuka, who shows him the inscription on Kurosawa's table that the aim is to reach Juhan Shutai before leaving. He tells Atsuka that it is miserable to be that optimist. He visits Mikiriyama before going home and asks Mikiriyama if an artist can draw for just himself. He tells him it is possible, but says that there is a lot that goes into drawing and publishing a book, and it will be better if he does it for the people invested in it. Kurosawa finishes with a sketch and sends it to Noro, who sends her the suggested layout. She shows them at the office, and they all love it, and she also visits Nakata to show him. She apologizes for how she spoke to him the last time and promises to be more responsive to him. He asks her about her goal, and she admits that it is Juhan Shutai. He insists he doesn't care about that, but if she wants it, he will do it because of her. The sales team submitted the suggested amount of books to be produced, and Wada is shocked that they are suggesting 50,000 copies of Peeves' Transition, which makes him so happy. They get another additional joy when they get a call that Mikiriyama's Dragon Rapid has won the award for manga books. Lockeye calls Mikiriyama to announce this, and Mikiriyama looks at his collections of works and how much he has done and decides he has made a name for himself. A day after Peeves' Transition is released, Kurosawa takes Nakata for the meet and greet. Before the meeting starts, he excuses himself to sketch a drawing for his fans. That is also the day for the award, and during the award, Mikiriyama announces that he is stopping the production of Dragon Rapid. While they all assume he is retiring, he screams that he has gotten a new idea for a work, and he wants Lockeye to work with him. Everyone is excited, and they go to celebrate. As they eat and drink, Koizumi comes to announce that the sales of Peeves' Transition between the first and second day had exceeded 50%, and as a result, it has reached Juhan Shutai. She goes inside the restaurant, announces to everyone, and calls Nakata too. At that moment, she recalls when she was almost giving up after she got injured, but with just a step, she found out where she was meant to be in life and things kept moving. She seeks to advise everyone that it starts with just a step to success, a step to dreaming and realization of dreams. Will you be taking that step today? Juhan Shutai may mean second printing in this series, but it can also be likened to a second win and a second chance. Will you take that one step again to reach your Juhan Shutai?